Today's guest is filmmaker Sara Alessandrini, an Italian storyteller now based in Los Angeles, who just released the provocative documentary miniseries, This Is What New Yorkers Say. Sara spent 5 years immersed in New York politics, following the controversies around former Governor Andrew Cuomo. In 2021, shortly after his resignation, she traveled across New York State, not just the city, to hear directly from everyday New Yorkers about how the resignation, the media, and the Democratic Party handled the situation. But what began as a project about Cuomo quickly grew into something much larger. Through candid conversations, Sara's series explores women's empowerment, justice, cancel culture, and the limits of the hashtag #MeToo movement, while questioning what happens when due process isn't applied equally. Her work isn't about providing easy answers. It's about asking the hard questions, giving space to voices often left out of the mainstream, and reminding us of the importance of honest, nuanced dialogue. Please welcome Sara Alessandrini. Hey, Miss
Hi.
Sara, I want to apologize. I will edit out that first slide and change that background. I guess I missed it in the editing process. But
Oh, that was a great intro. It was like very dramatic. It was like great. Beautiful.
well, I hope you liked it, and I think at the end of the day, it's fun to tell a story. So I like to use videos to kind of use that to introduce the guests. But so let's get into this. Let's dive in and where did this docuseries come from? What made you decide to want to start this?
Yeah, that was a very reckless decision I took one day, and I just stick to that for like 5 years. So yeah, I actually live in Los Angeles. I never lived in New York, but I always loved New York. That's where my heart is, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was like during COVID, like I was not following politics that much. Like I love politics, but I was trying to kind of stay away from it
Yeah.
a little because you have to focus on your life sometime, and when you're like so focused on politics, knowing what's happening outward, then you forget about what's happening inward.
Yep.
So that's where I was. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm like taking a break from politics, and then like things were happening, and then I started watching Cuomo's like the news conference, and I liked how he was talking about politics, how he's talking about government, and I just like found myself like listening and seeing how like beautiful actually government could be, because like it can really help people's life. So I got that passionate. I was like, okay, so because I come from Italy, obviously, so in Italy politics is very much like you feel so hopeless so many ways. There is so much corruption, so much nepotism, so much like you need to know the people to be part of it. So people complain about this country, but it's not that bad, honestly.
Yeah,
So,
being from the military, I can agree that the majority of the people that complain over here has not seen what a third world country looks like and how much worse things can be. So
yeah, and you don't even need to go to a third world country. Like I come from Italy. Like Italy
yeah,
is a great country and still very different. Like the opportunities that you have or don't have there, like compared to here. So yeah, but that's a different conversation, obviously.
yeah,
So so yeah, I was just following the situation, and then I started seeing like the allegation that were like made against him. And I saw how the media reacted right away, like without even like looking, like questioning things, just assuming just because a woman was saying so that must be the truth. The politicians, the same thing. As soon as there was the second accusation, they were like so ready to say he was guilty, and people were saying we don't even need to see to get in to do an investigation. We don't need to know. We know enough. And it's like that's not how it's supposed to be. And I see how that also plays out like in society when you're in a company and someone says something against you, and like it's not just about politicians. So it obviously like things get very heated over there, but even like in the regular life or regular people, someone says something against you and then you're done. Like you don't have a chance to speak for yourself, you cannot defend yourself, and that's not good for men or women. So to me, there was so much going on, like in my life. I was seeing how this was playing out in society in general. So there was that frustration for me, but also when that was done to Cuomo, who I was listening directly from him, and I saw the media, how they were interpreting what he was saying. Every time he said something, they said something totally different than what I understood. So at a certain point, I had to ask myself, is like, am I too stupid to understand the situation? Or is someone else dishonest?
Yeah.
So
I,
that's how I felt about that.
I
And
think I can completely understand. As a podcaster, it makes me happy because there has been so much distrust in the media system as far as major news companies, that it has helped podcasters. A lot of people have started turning to podcasts to get their news and their updates, just because it's so one-sided. You either have to listen to Fox and be on one side, or you have to listen to CNN and be on the other side. And if you could just flip in the middle somewhere, you could probably find the truth.
yeah, like it's important to listen to both sides, so at least you can get maybe some information right. But if you're
Yep.
always listening just from one source, and then you don't hear what the criticism is on the other side, and maybe it's a crazy criticism, but it might still make you think, and okay, I'll do my own research.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I mean, I love podcasts too, because actually, like with the news, there is always something new. So the every day, like you can really dive deep into the topic. You're
Yeah.
always jumping from one to the next. And with podcasts, okay, you can spend 1 hour just talking about one topic,
Yep.
and hear what everybody is saying, and like go deep, and jump from one thought to the next one. So yeah, I love the podcast concept.
So let me ask you this: when you decided to jump in on this, because I did the same thing with starting a radio station, I had no idea what I was getting into. What were the surprises that you found when you actually started the process?
Well, first of all, I was not in any place to make this project because I had like $800 in my bank account. That's not money. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I'm still living paycheck to paycheck.
Me
Uh,
too.
yeah, and I was I didn't think I was like getting into making a movie. Like I was not planning to. Like, yeah, I've been in the movie industry. I love that, but I was not. That was not part of like how I was planning my future. I was like happy where I was, the way I was, the kind of jobs I was doing. So yeah, like I didn't think right away. And this is a mini series now, but actually I made it first as a feature documentary.
Hmm.
So this was like in 2021. So he resigned in August, and then 2 months later, I was like, I have like right away actually, but I was like, I have to do something about it. And first, I thought maybe I'm gonna just do some short videos to share online, something. I was not planning for like a full feature documentary,
Hmm.
and and then like I was like looking for people online to help me find people to interview, because also I was not there in New York, so I didn't know anyone in that environment. So then like to try to find people to interview, people that travel with me and stuff like that. So then like as the more I was thinking about the project, the more I was like, well, there is a big opportunity here. It's not just about Cuomo, but really about like really these topics, like the Me Too movement, the empowerment of women, which obviously there is so much good about the Me Too movement, but at the same time, we have to continue questioning. Like you need to have a system in place. That's the point, and make sure that the accusations are true. That like you can prove something. Obviously, you cannot prove everything, but then and the cancel culture that is connected to it, that's the big problem, obviously, like canceling people, not giving them a chance to really make a change, even if they did something wrong, like not giving people that chance. So then I realized that, and so then I was like, oh, maybe there is a chance for a full documentary. But then until actually I was on the street, I didn't know who I would see, because like obviously I was like some people online were helping me find the people, but until I went there, I didn't even know if I had anyone I could interview. And on the street, even there, it's hard to find people like to have like some deep interview. And it was right after he resigned, so also a lot of people didn't want to talk about it. People that were supporting didn't want to talk about it, because of course they like some people lost their job in the afterwards just because they were supporting him. And I know some people, they had to resign for their position just because someone was pointing out that they actually like Cuomo. So there was all this system, and like people were afraid to put their face, and the people that hated him didn't even want to interview because they already got what they wanted when he resigned. So
Yeah.
so it was challenging that, but like some reason, like I ended up like, yeah, getting like these amazing people. And I didn't know how long the interview would be, but actually like they ended up being like so deep, and people like they really open themselves up to me, and they start talking about their personal life, and like the challenges that they went through. And it was really real, like people, real people. And that's what I really loved about this project, because it's not like that fake Hollywood kind of like
Yeah.
documentary or film, where like everybody like looks a very specific way. It's real people, you can see they're very authentic.
Yeah.
And so then the challenges start after I finish editing. The challenges start growing and growing and growing. And so first I finished as a feature documentary in like 6 months, more or less. Like
Okay.
I did everything by myself because obviously I didn't have money to pay for anyone. Like I just paid a couple of friends for like the music, the color correction, but everything else was done by me. And so then I went to like film festivals. So but obviously it was like smaller type of film festival, so I
Mhm.
got to see what people felt watching the documentary. And the more I was like thinking there, like I was like looking for distribution at that point, after like a year or like festivals. And like I mean, I know it was not over. I know it was not over because also like the feature documentary was just the interviews of the people. And it didn't have the first part where actually tells you the story, because that's used, like I made it with archival footage, which obviously it's a big process when you use other people's footage. Like, you know, you
Yep.
have to go through like fair use review. So that was like 2 years of my life with my lawyer editing the episode in an extra like way and making changes, so to make sure that like I was using the specific amount that is required by the law, and like that kind of stuff. So that was a big challenge for sure, and doing that, trying to work as fast as I could to make enough money to pay for my lawyer. uh, so it was like all those challenges for a couple of years, and like struggling because also I was dealing with my life work. I was still a part-time student at that point. So the challenges were pretty crazy, and also like fighting with the people that I was like collaborating with at the beginning, that they helped me find interview. They were like threatening me with lawsuits. So it was like all that like craziness that every day I was like trying to survive, just to try to get this to the end. And
All for something that you wasn't really even over there or a part. You were just kind of reporting on it, and all of a sudden his chaos has became your chaos.
yeah, pretty much. And and I'm not still dealing with like his enemies or anything. But yeah, it was just like, yeah, all this chaos into my life, like suddenly, like, yeah. But it's been a great journey. It's been a great journey, which obviously like I'm so grateful for. And like it gave me so
Yeah.
much purpose. Like my life, like obviously it's very different now than it was before, and I'm like so grateful for everything that happened. But yeah, it definitely like, and the challenges are still here also, because I'm also an immigrant, so also like struggling to find a way. Okay, the rules that applies to me are different than other people, so it's a lot to navigate every
Yeah.
day. So yeah.
Especially doing it by yourself. I mean, that's a big undertaking. Yeah, I want to unpack something that you said real quick. The fact that um you were doing real people, and they look real. I think that is so important in today's world, because AI has gone kind of mainstream now to where just about everybody's using it somewhat, right? But that question comes up a lot: is this real? You know,
Mm.
and the fact that you were, you could tell that you were interviewing real people off the streets. I think that in itself gives a credibility to a documentary now compared to what it used to be. People used to question, their thoughts and stuff like that. And now they're just questioning, is this person even breathing? Is it a real person? And
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. I love watching documentaries. I watch every night
before I go to bed, I'll watch something, and my taste just goes all over the place. But I think it's important because you get to learn a little bit about the filmmaker. You get to learn a little bit about the topic, and a little bit of knowledge goes a long ways. So when you started interviewing people, were these people that you found and agreed to set up a time to interview, or were they literally just people off the street you were trying to get to stop long enough to talk to you?
It's like half and half. Some people found like them through some people that I found online. Some people were like friends of people found online. So like whoever wants to speak about this topic, we got a few people of those. Then we found like a few people that were just on the street, and they were willing to talk about these topics, and they're like great interviews too. And then it was like the beauty of this was also like, yeah, the beauty of like human beings. We found like a total stranger on the street, and he found a couple of his friends who were like willing to talk about this topic, and he sent us to their home, and they opened their house to us, like total strangers, like in the middle of Queens. They knew nothing. Like one person was still like having like her physical therapy session at home while we were interviewing their friends. It was very very human, very real, very like being part of a family suddenly, like this, like
Yeah.
people opening their home to you. Like that's beautiful humanity. That was like beautiful for
And see,
sure.
that's awesome in itself, because New York never gets that kind of news. It's always the crime rate and the problems there. Nobody ever reports on that. That is probably a small percentage of New Yorkers. It's not the majority. And it is funny because I've had several people from New York on my show, and they all say the same thing. If they're not from New York City, if they're upstate, they all say they hate New York City. Right? That's not New York. That's something completely different. And I always found that kind of funny. But it is. I mean, they're a farming community and down home people, especially northern areas. And it doesn't surprise me that you would find some people like that even in the city.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a huge fan of New Yorkers. Like, at I have a lot of bad experiences too, obviously, but yeah, a lot of like beautiful things. And then even when I was at some festivals, like I was at the one festival that was like in the middle of nowhere, like a urban, like very rural area, and this
Mhm.
person was doing like this small festival like in their like Victorian house, like in the back of that. And so it was the middle of nowhere, and I went there and I didn't even get a car because I didn't even want to get a car, and they said, oh yeah, there is Uber available, so I'm not going to rent a car. And also because when you don't have a car, then you get a ride from other people sometime, and you create more connection, which I love
Yeah.
that. Because like when you share time in the car and like you meet filmmakers, and everybody's going to have a car. So I was like, I don't need a car, I'll just like get Uber. So I went there actually to that festival twice. And so the first time I could find Uber to get there, and it was great. And then I got ride to back home and everything was fine. The second time I didn't even, I couldn't find Uber. So I found myself like in random places. Like I went to Chautauqua Institution, took me an hour to get Uber. So even to go back home, I didn't know how I would do, because if it took 1 hour to find one Uber, and randomly I started talking to someone on the street, and we became friends right away. And he gave me a ride back home. We're still friends. Another stranger at the diner gave me a ride to the place. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, and like that's where like I love like a people. I love like also like people that are different. Like obviously that area, it's like a rural area that is not very Cuomo supporter type, like a lot of like Trump signs. So this was like back
Yep.
in 2022. So I went to this pub, and of course there were people like with like Trump wristbands. Everybody like loved Trump there, and so I went there, and like this crazy person going to a like area like in Western New York, like saying, "Yeah, I'm here doing a documentary. It actually defends Cuomo. I support Cuomo." And so these people, like, it was crazy. Like they loved it. It was like so funny for them that this random person from Los Angeles coming to Western New York, defending Cuomo, like right close to when he resigned, pretty much. And we had a great night, actually. Like, we're just talking. They kept offering me drinks. It was a great night. Like, I love like meeting like people that are different, like part of the spectrum and everything, like different aisles. I think that's beautiful, and it's beautiful to be able to have those conversations, even if you disagree with people. Obviously, like disagree on so many things, but the ability to be able to talk to people and hear what they have to say, I think it's like the most important thing, for sure.
Yeah. I that's the one thing I miss from pre-COVID is people could sit down and have a conversation. I guess that technically pre-2018. People could sit down and have a conversation, disagree, and still walk away and be friends. And that all changed after 2018. I hope at some point it gets back to that. But yeah, and I think COVID just made it worse because people were isolated and then they got stuck. Just like you said, you weren't watching the news, but a lot of people did. And they just stared and it became depressing. And I think it affected a lot of people's mental health. When you went to New York, you had a camera and $800. And did you have a friend or somebody to stay with there, or?
Like I was traveling with some of these people that I met online. So like for a couple of nights we stayed at their house, but the rest we were like in hotel sharing. But I was lucky because like right before like I start traveling, like all the COVID stimulus checks, they arrived like really the week before I traveled. So it was like, oh, I had some money, and I'm I'm Italian, so I'm so used to like be very resourceful with very little money. So yeah, I'm just like used to that, and like and when you do everything by yourself, obviously, like, and yeah, beside like obviously like yeah, the hotel when we were traveling, and the flight and everything, and then okay, yeah, some credit cards. So then obviously then back then I had only $800. Now I have way less because now I have debt, obviously, because then I had to get credit cards, loans, just to be able to keep going. Because also when you make a movie, like you have to get insurance. So you need lawyer like to go through some process. So like all that process obviously like gets expensive, and yeah. So then I'm still paying off like that for the series. Obviously, it's like, but yeah. So, but it's great. I love that. Like that here, you have these opportunities where actually, even without nothing, you're still like, if you learn how the system works, you're able to find ways. And I think it's like the most amazing thing about this country, how dynamic it is.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, I had a guest come on and he made a comment about the amendments, and I never thought about it till he said it, but I sure stole what he said. And he said that our founding fathers knew what the most important thing was of the Constitution. And that's why they made it the first. And that's the First Amendment, because speech and knowledge is way more important. The Second Amendment came second, and that's for the people that either they lost that First Amendment and they use the Second Amendment to protect it, or they're uneducated and they think that the Second Amendment is the most important thing. But it is true, even in my world in the military, knowledge is power, you know. And I think it's cool that in this country, somebody like yourself can decide to just go out, make a film, and get all this stuff done that I guarantee a lot of YouTubers don't do. They don't deal with all the licensing and all that stuff.
Yeah, I see everybody just like using footage, and I'm like, wow, that must be nice.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's baffling. But when you went into this, right, and you decided, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, was your goal more so to defend him and try to see if the people were behind him, or what was you expecting to come out of this?
That's a very good question. Because like I don't even know exactly. Like, yeah, definitely like that was my perception. Like I knew that to me, like, that he was innocent about all of that, and there were so many conversations we needed to have. So definitely I went like that, but I was open to hear what people had to say. Like, here I was trying to feature New Yorkers, obviously. So my question were more about like all these kind of topics. So yeah, I went there with like, obviously, like, I have my own opinion, and like but I always say, like, I think my miniseries is more balanced than I am, because yes, I think with the miniseries, like, obviously the majority of people are more pro Cuomo, but also that happened organically because the people who hated him would not want to do the interview. And I tried, when I met people who actually didn't like him, I tried to say like, okay, when I do an interview or everything. So like that organically happened, and like some people, but also other people are not necessarily like supporter or Cuomo, and they focus more on talking about society. And that's where, like, at the end, like the series, it's like 5 episodes. Like the first one is really showing like the topics of like the topics, like talking about like whatever happened through archival footage, how it was popular, how like the accusation came, and all the things that he's been accused over the years, because it's not just a sexual harassment accusation. He's been accused of so many things. Like I would say, even of abandoning his dog, which is like, do you really need to write an article like as a newspaper about him maybe abandoning the dog, which of course it didn't happen. But so that shows you like the state of like the news media right now, if that's kind of articles they do. So
It's about money. What is people going to pay to listen to, and what is people going to pay them to say? That's really what it comes down to anymore. And I learned that from documentaries. That's nothing new. That, we thought journalists were independent or biased, but newspapers have been like that all the way back to when we used oil for lighting instead of electricity. That went back and forth about bad headlines and people writing false articles and paying to have them published and everything else. I think you've seen it again when Trump with New York, and how all of those accusations and everything came out, and then some were found to be untrue. Some obviously was true because he paid another penalty on it, and I don't think he would have if he didn't feel that he had a shot at winning. But I think all of that still happens, and when you get down into the roots of the people, I don't think they really care so much about the person, but the effects. I could see somebody who had sexual harassment problems, being more biased against him just because he was accused of sexual harassment, and that just becomes an instant judge, accused, guilty. That's it. Don't want to hear nothing else. And
not all sexual harassment accusations are equal at the same time. Like they keep talking about, he was accused by 11 people. Yes, but like you cannot put them, even if it's 11, when you're like a politician, to me, and like you have like millions of people you like deal with every day, 11 people is different than if you're like 11 people in a company of 25 people, obviously. Right. So, but also even there, like not only 11 people were like working with him. Like one was like a doctor that like he was giving him a like COVID test. He just said like, you make the gown look good. Like that was like one thing. That's not the same thing as like the other accuser, Brittany Commisso, who says that he grabbed her breast. Those are very two different things. And like, even if like you can say that it's wrong that he made the comment to the doctor, that doesn't mean that the other one is true. So people put all of them together, but like another one is like, okay, he grabbed someone's like face and like give her a kiss her on the cheek, which like he's an Italian person. You don't know in New York that Italian people kiss people on the cheek. You want me to believe that? So a lot of those accusations are like that. So, but you cannot like be like, okay, this person accused him of this thing very different from this one, so the other one must be true just because it's an extra person who was uncomfortable. But yeah, go back to the topic of before, like I was saying, like then beside the first episode that is more about the facts, then the second one is more about Cuomo and what people think about Cuomo. From the third episode to the fifth, like it started going a little away from Cuomo. So that's where it really becomes a bigger conversation about, like in the third episode, it's more about people venting about how, to the Democrats, to the political system, to the media, what you were saying, like you cannot trust, it's all about clicks, and what is due process, and like what are the dangers of a society where due process is not given to all people equally. So that's where like the conversation starts from Cuomo, but it's really about like what people feel about these topics that are like universal in a way. And then the fourth episode, they name Cuomo one time in the episode, so it's really not about him in that sense. It's really about women empowerment, like how far we have gone, like how things were bad like 50 years ago, and like how things are now. So, and when we complain about now, we have to remember it's still not as bad as it was before. So we cannot act as like our current reality is the worst ever that it's ever been, whether it's about women rights or all other like social issues. So that we have to like, yes, there is always so much work that needs to be done, but we have to remember also that we have to be fair, that like things were much worse back then.
Right.
So that's a conversation. And then the last episode is more about our society, so like cancel culture, and then it goes back to Cuomo at the end, and like how people feel about like voting for him too, like if people are still open. And this was like before he started running for mayor, obviously. So yeah, it's all about Cuomo, but like some of the interviews were very little about Cuomo, so it didn't really matter exactly if they like him or not, because it was really an opportunity to talk about these very important topics that matter to anyone in this country.
Yeah. And I think that makes perfect sense. I kind of assume that's where the majority of the conversation would come from, because like I said, I don't think people really care about him as much as the topic around him. And that may be from life experiences for themselves or whichever, or just reading bad news on Reddit or something, you know. At the end of the day, there was a lot of people in today's world make their decision in 3 seconds from the little bit they heard and the headline they seen, and then they decide. And it's unfortunate, you know.
Yeah, and it's very weird now, like to me, that I'm following like this mayoral campaign that is running for mayor, like how like things shifted like in people's perception of him. And like I live in Los Angeles, and like obviously no one cared about that here. Like everybody loved him during COVID, but then after he resigned, people forgot about that and they moved on with their lives. Now suddenly he, like even people here, when I talk to people, like before, for the past years, when I said, oh yeah, I'm doing this documentary and actually defends him and whatever, people were like, oh, okay, that's fine. But now like you see like people like getting very dark when I say that, like, because some people on the left, like suddenly he became kind of like Trump. And I'm like, he was always like the Democrats' hero, like he didn't change, but the left changed. We're like now like the left is going so much to the left that even people that were always like Democrats, left, or whatever, now they're being considered to be too right. And that's like so bizarre. And like I understand if like people feel that way in New York, where like you're like living that, but even like here in Los Angeles, like where does the information come from that like now you're suddenly believing that Cuomo is this guy like he always like fought with Trump, he always like everybody, like people on the right hated him because he was fighting with Trump, the Democrats loved him because he was fighting with Trump. Now suddenly some people on the left think that he's gonna just like become a mayor and become like Trump or something. It's like, where does that information come from?
I love, you know, when it comes to politics, I consider myself politically homeless. You know, I really don't care unless it affects our military and our veterans. Other than that, you know, to me, it's like a WWE match. It's all scripted and watch, and it makes you laugh, right? Because I was that guy that in 2018 that got upset over what I was hearing on the news and everything else. And now as time has gone and I've gotten a little wiser, I can stand back and watch the meltdowns that happen. And a lot of the people don't even know the whole background, you know. And I laugh because everybody hated Trump because of the stuff that he supposedly did in his personal life. And I was like, you're not voting for a friend. You know, you're voting for who's going to run this country the best. In New York situation, it was who's going to run the state the best. You know, you don't have to like the person. if they're smart enough to run the country and they can do a good job about it. And so many people just can't get past that. They can't look at, okay, that's just a rumor. We don't have any facts or anything to stand on, and they can't separate that. And I think that's where the comedy comes from.
Yeah, it's that like moral superiority that people are like so focused right now. And like I totally get it. Like you don't wanna like yeah, like vote for someone who's like a horrible human being, like whatever,
Right.
like and all the things. And I see that like a lot of people feel that Trump is that way. But still, like that, when they attack the people who vote for someone, like people vote for people, for a politician, for all kinds of reasons. You cannot judge them and just assume that they are like these horrible human beings just because they voted for someone. And I mean, I come from Italy, and like in Italy, we had our Donald Trump in a way for 20 years, for like all these years. It's kind of it was a similar thing where like, like people always had to attack him on personal issue and everything. And it's fine, but like if you want to win election, you have to also propose something.
Yeah.
And when you just focus on like trying to find ways to prevent the other person from running, like the Democrats for the past years, they just spend their energy just like finding other ways so that he would not run. Instead of like trying to have him not run, why don't you propose something so that when you both run, then people are going to choose you because of the ideas that you bring to the table, because of who you are, not because you did something. And that, to me, when you do those kind of tactics, like it already proves that you have nothing to offer. And obviously I'm on like the Democrat side, so I'm glad I cannot vote, so that I don't have to pick any party, so I can just be in the middle and everything. But that's like what I saw, and like the division that has been happening in this country for the past years. It's just like scary, and also what happened to Charlie Kirk now. It's like so heartbreaking. It's like people are not able to listen to other people, whether you agree with someone or not. But he was doing something beautiful, like having a platform that allowed anyone to talk, and he was allowing them to give a chance for them to change his mind. And it was like, that's part of the solution, it's not part of the problem. And that's so heartbreaking that this happened. So
Yeah. It is crazy how we have thought that we have to turn to violence when we don't like something. And that is scary, because like I said, as a veteran, I spent 68 months deployed to some of these great places, Iraq, Afghanistan, Bosnia, and I've watched countries get torn down by people who are rioting and upset. And I look at the streets of what we're seeing, and man, I'm starting to see a lot of similarities, and it is kind of scary, because once we stop talking to each other, well, that's when it gets worse, because now there is no negotiations, there is no coming to an understanding, and that's the worst part about it. I do find it funny though with New York, right? It's like New York has its own special case, and I do understand how important the state is when it comes to the grand scheme of politics. But they really do. It sounds like to me that the people really do listen and kind of take in consideration what they're hearing more so than the people. Obviously, probably not the case with Trump, but majority of New Yorkers are Democrats who don't like Cuomo. So, I mean, when you
I
get
don't know if they don't like him. Like, I think it's very hard to say, because also like, what is a New Yorker? Like, that's been my question during this race, because like my experience, like I hear a lot of people talking and they like Cuomo and everything, but also it depends. Like if you're going upstate, it's different than in New York City, obviously. Uh, but that's the thing, like because like during this mayoral race, it was interesting how people say that like he represent like the rich people, the billionaires, but actually the majority of the low income people voted for Cuomo during this race. So that's what people don't understand. They think that like Mamdani represents, which is funny, because Mamdani actually is rich. He's from a rich family. Like he went to very expensive like schools, even when he didn't have to, because like like elementary school and all those, he went to private schools. So there is some, like, it's hard to say, because that, again, who are the people who are voting for Mamdani? Are they all people that actually moved to New York after 2020. So because like obviously like the people change constantly, so I think like the people that have been like in New York like all their life, that they also like know Cuomo's father, like Mario Cuomo, like those people, they like him, they love the father, they like Cuomo and everything. Then there is a bunch of people obviously they hate Cuomo, because also there is like some background there, because some people like in politics they hated his father too. So then now also like those people that were supporting those that hated his father now obviously hate him. So obviously there is a long history behind that. But that's where my question is, like the people that are voting now, they voted in the primary. And again, like the primary, like if you look at the numbers, it's not that people didn't vote for Cuomo. Like people act as if like he lost miserably, but it's not true. Like he got, like once you put all the rounds together, he got 440,000 votes. Mamdani was like 570, something like that. So we're not talking about no one voted for him.
Right.
So yeah, like I think there is like a bunch of people that like him, or some people that don't like him, but they understand that obviously he is like the most qualified, like the best qualification for the job, and that. And then you have a bunch of people, obviously a lot of young people right now, that they are interested in the socialism, and so it doesn't matter who is what you propose, they just love that Mamdani supports socialism, is a socialist. So, and you see a lot of that in young people. I mean, obviously I live in Los Angeles, so I see a lot of that here. The majority of like people that I talk to. So it's hard to say. But I'm questioning mostly like because like Mamdani won the primary specifically because more people voted than the previous primary. Like if you compare this primary to the one where like Eric Adams became the mayor, more New Yorkers voted, and so he got to like register more people specifically in like the 20s and early like 30s. So he got a lot of those people who tend to be more on the socialist side, different type of politics. And Cuomo is a moderate, so for people that are like very much left, being moderate is a bad thing too. It's not different as being on the right. So it's very difficult to say, because that's what I see. There are some people who really love Cuomo. I think like Cuomo honestly is more controversial than Trump as a figure.
I would agree. You know, the thing about Trump's stuff is it hits the news, it's there for a day or two, and then it dwindles down to nothing. But like you said, the thing with Cuomo, it's been there for a long time. You know, there's a long list. I pulled up a list of all the stuff that he was accused of, and there's a lot of stuff, and a lot of it isn't just major stuff either, like you said.
Yeah, like the other day I saw an old article that I never saw before, like stuff like he's accused of, like even like, I mean, this mayoral race was pretty crazy. Like they were accusing him like of not being a real New Yorker. Like he was born and raised in New York. Like he spent, except when he was in Washington working for HUD, like he was always in New York. And he was like 11 years the governor, which is part of New York, but they say because he's outside of New York City, he's not a New Yorker. Then we have like the other people, Mamdani, who was not even born in this country. And then we have the other person that was doing the primary, Brad Lander, who was not also born in New York either, but they all were attacking him for not being enough a New Yorker because he lived in Westchester, which again, but he was still working New York City and Albany, obviously, when he was a governor. And again, he was like part of the governor, so he was dealing with all like issues in New York City too. But there were crazy stuff too, like when they asked him what was his favorite bagel, he said the ingredients in the wrong order than what real New Yorker would say. And I'm like, really?
When you got to I believe you said the third series where it changed more so to the people on the street talking about their issues, not so much about individuals. Were you surprised at any of the things that you were getting back from the feedback you were getting from them?
More like when episode 4, actually, more that's when they start talking about their personal like experiences, more about like sexual harassment and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean that obviously they really open themselves up so much, like sharing like even experience, like how someone was like raped as a kid. And like someone else was sharing like workplace stories of sexual harassment. So yeah, like definitely I was not expecting, and like other people, yeah, talking about how they also were like victims of like situation, and like to see sometimes people that are like crying. So obviously, yeah, I was not expecting people to open themselves up and like share such like intimate stories for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's awesome what you're doing too, because those stories that you're getting are trauma, and them being able to talk about it either shows that they're either in the process of healing, or you've helped them start to get to that point. That's what podcasting did for me, and I'm a fan of people that document their stories and tell their stories, if it's nothing more than just to themselves in the mirror, just to get it out and get talking about it. So it does kind of surprise me though that those were the big issues in a place like New York, because you don't hear anything about rapes and sexual assaults and stuff like that. You hear about murders and these big crime things that's going on. And I've never been to New York, so I only know what I see on the news and the TV and everything else. But you don't never see that type of stuff. Not that I'm naive and think it doesn't happen. That's not what I'm saying. It seems like, that was a bigger issue than their safety as far as walking down the street. And if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the things that they were complaining about with Como, was that the crime rates and everything else, the violent crimes was up there, and nobody was doing anything about it.
Yeah, I mean that's more now for this campaign for sure. The interview obviously were done like a little like earlier, was like 2021. So, and we started more talking about his issue. That's what triggered all the conversation. So we didn't go into that kind of issue. And plus, I interviewed people around the state, so it was not only New York City. Obviously, like people like Long Island, Albany, Rochester. So it's different part, not only New York City.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean even that is like hard to say, like because yeah, now they complain about more him for the crime, like being responsible, but
Yeah.
Again, he was the governor, not the mayor of New York City, so yeah, definitely have like some responsibility in like how things were happening. But yeah, I mean that's like my question. It's like what I always like, people are always like ready to judge people. Okay, you did this, you did that,
Yep.
but what like when you're like in charge of something, actually when you're in charge of whatever, it's a company, whatever it's like of a team or something, it's hard. It's hard, like, and when you do something you think that's what's gonna be a good thing, but sometimes when you do a good thing you create the opposite effect, even if you're not trying. Like when you're a parent, like let's say like I was like hearing these stories where like parents like kids are not able to tie their lace anymore, like in the shoes, because and the parents do it all the time for them, like, which is crazy. But
It is
like
crazy.
as a parent you think, oh, I'm doing something nice for my kid, so that's going to be good for them, but actually you're creating the opposite effect.
Yeah.
So like then you create someone who is not able to be independent, who's not able to to live their life fully as they could if you didn't do that. So when
Right.
I think about politics and policies, like I always you try to focus more like on the vision that the person
Mhm.
has for society than the policies, because maybe you're like, because every politician might do bad policies, like it's impossible to do good policies all the time. So to me, like whether it's Trump or whether it's someone on the left, like maybe you have good intention but your good policy actually create like some effects that is not what you intended to. So for me it's hard to say, and sometimes maybe like you do some bad policy that like people, like sometimes you have to take risk in politics too,
Yeah.
and you cannot take risks because right now, like, everybody's gonna jump and criticize you. Like, I think about the tariffs for Trump. I don't know. I don't have that much like knowledge to know the tariffs are good or bad. But obviously, other countries are doing the tariffs to you too. Tariffs are always existed. But when you're like, and everybody is like reading that tariffs are bad. But what if, as a politician, you want to take a risk because you have a vision that is bigger than that specific things? And like, I had to take a risk to make this documentary, and like in the short term, it's been giving me a lot of bad things, obviously, but in the long term, you might have different effects. So I try, like, that's my approach when I try not to judge and point finger too much on specific policies. Sometimes, like, when it's something complex, obviously, Mamdani is like suggesting like to legalize prostitution. Obviously, I'm against that. That doesn't seem like a good policy.
Shocking VD has gone skyrocketing up, you know. I mean,
yeah, so like something like that, I'm like, yeah, like obviously that specific policy is like, but when you're talking about like bigger system, bigger reforms, it's hard to say like, okay, this is this person's fault. And like even for like the legalization of marijuana, like Cuomo was the one who passed that to make it legal to like smoke weed and everything. But then he left office right away, pretty much. So there's still like, because there have been issues, there have been a lot of like illegal stores that sells marijuana over there. They're still blaming Cuomo, but the person who implemented is the current the current governor. So there is always that like finger pointing. So it's hard to say when it's like such a like different system. Something in New York City, there is the mayor responsible for certain things, there is the governor responsible. So those situations are more like nuanced, I guess. So yeah, it's hard to say.
And I think a lot of people just really don't understand too how long it takes for the effect to actually trickle down to them, right? So it is not uncommon to hear somebody complaining about the current president or the current governor, but it's really just the effects from the last person have taken that long for you to see the difference, good or bad. It's not necessarily always bad, but there is a lot of red tape that comes along with these types of things. There's a lot of checks and balances that it goes through. So, I mean, it's not like once the ink is dried, the policies are there and they're instantly affecting the people. And I think a lot of wrongful pointing happens to that. We've gotten so used to information at the tips of our fingers, we just can't wrap our heads around why it takes 2 years to figure out if the president's any good or not. And it is kind of interesting how people react to that. You brought up a good point, because the one thing that I disagreed with was the way the federal government handled legalizing marijuana. And obviously I would have never seen this coming either, but I owned a trucking company at that point. And so I was all over the United States, and you would see so many homeless people or people living in RVs or whatever, and the cost of housing just goes skyrocketing through the roof because all these people moved to these states that were legalizing it instead of just doing it statewide, you know, all of America, like Canada did. We did these little individual places, and temporarily it's really had a huge effect. You know, I seen hotels that were charging $26 a day for a parking spot for your RV, you know, and the owner told me he makes more money from his parking spots than he does from his rooms. And that's insane. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. But I'm going to give you that opportunity to tell everybody where they can find it and all that stuff. But I got one hard question that I'm dying to know. If you could pick anybody in the world, alive or dead, to do a documentary with, who would it be?
Like with or like about?
With or about, either one.
It's a very hard question because I was not planning to do anyone. So I was not really like, that was not a plan in my life. So yeah. I guess Cuomo is the only one I was planning to do a documentary about. I'm just like, yeah.
Okay.
I guess I gotta stick to the one I did. So
there you go. So what is on the horizon then? Where is your hopes that this documentary ends up at?
Well, right now, like I did everything by myself. I self-produced it, I self-distributed. So I'm like, and I put it on the platform. So I'm just like now just promoting, like spreading the word so that people can hear about it. And it's more about like sparking conversation. Like that's
Yeah.
why I love like the idea of like coming to podcasts, because this is documentary that like makes you want to talk about all kinds of topics, and that's what I like doing. Like I like talking about different topics and getting people to question things. It's really like the documentary is really not about giving you the definitive answer on everything. It's
Yeah.
not like an investigation about like, okay, this is exactly what happened, like this is like the truth, this is not the truth, obviously. It's
Yeah.
really more about getting people to question what they think they know, because again, they think they know certain things from the media, but then through the documentary, hopefully you get to see the other side of the story that most people didn't get to hear, and
Yep.
just to be open about like other people. And that's like to listen to the stories. Like I love this documentary because you hear people talking, and sometimes people talk for like 5 minutes in a row or something like that. Maybe that's too much, but like 2 minutes in a row, which is rare also for documentaries. It's rare when they're talking about these topics, because I want people to stop what they're doing, focus on the moment, and listen to what people have to say. You don't have to agree with what they're saying, just be open to the humanity of other people.
Yep.
So that's really what I want to do. I want to like, because there is just too much division nowadays in this country, and people
100%.
need to be able to be open to other people's ideas, opinions, and not react to everything, not attack everybody. Because then when you start reacting to things, then you're easy to manipulate, because someone can just feed some information there, and you're gonna just jump on that, react, and maybe that thing was fake. Maybe someone else's benefit from that, from you being like so divided in this country too.
Yep.
And that's like, I just want people to be able to slow down and think, because now everybody just like, they're just like 3 seconds and I'm gonna move on to the next thing, but that's not healthy for anyone. So
Yeah, I agree. Well, I'm going to go and bring you forward and give you the opportunity to tell everybody where they can find it and where they can follow you and learn about future projects.
yeah, like, so right now the series is available on Apple TV on demand. It's available on YouTube, but you can also find it on Zumo right now for free with advertisements, so you can watch it there. It's going to be on more platform, I think, next week. But yeah, so like if you want to check it out, yeah, you can also go to the website, thisiswhatnewyorkerssay.com, and you can find all the information there. You can follow me on Twitter or social media, Facebook. So yeah, just check it out and let me know what you think.
All right. And we will, I'll paste some of the links so that people can find it as well from some few of those platforms in the comments. And I'll make sure that we run the name at the bottom and everything. So it'll make it real easy for people to, they have no excuses. They can take some time and watch. So, well, I appreciate you coming on, Sarah. I had a great time. I love talking about films and things that people are doing, and especially when we're talking about documentaries, because I love learning things without having to sit in a school. I'm not a book guy, but I do like learning stuff about a lot of stuff that people don't like listening to. So I will let you go, and we'll tell everybody, make sure you guys have a great day. Don't let the day kick your ass. Kick the day's ass.